He ran into the fire expecting to save a stranger, but hours later that same woman would walk into the one room that could decide his entire future and recognize him before he could even say his name. The fire didn't look real at first. Daniel Carter thought it was just another reflection in the rain-soaked streets, orange lights flickering against glass buildings as he walked home after another exhausting shift driving deliveries. His shoes were soaked, his jacket smelled faintly of gasoline, and his phone buzzed with another rejection email he didn't bother opening. Another job application denied. Another reminder that life hadn't gone the way he planned. Then he heard the screaming. A sharp, desperate cry cut through the night, followed by shattering glass. Daniel turned toward a small office building engulfed in flames. Smoke poured from the windows like dark waves swallowing the sky. People stood outside filming, shouting, frozen between fear and curiosity. But someone yelled words Daniel couldn't ignore. Someone's still inside. For a moment, he hesitated. Daniel wasn't a firefighter. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man trying to rebuild his life after losing everything. His stable job, his savings, and nearly his confidence. Tomorrow morning was the most important interview he'd had in years. One injury tonight could ruin it. Then another scream echoed from the second floor, and hesitation disappeared. Before anyone could stop him, Daniel wrapped his sleeve around his mouth and ran inside. Heat slammed into him instantly. The hallway burned his lungs with every breath. Flames crawled along the walls, devouring furniture and ceiling panels. Somewhere deeper inside, something collapsed with a thunderous crash. He followed the sound of coughing. In a smoke-filled office, he found her, unconscious near a fallen desk, trapped beneath debris. A young woman in business clothes, her face streaked with soot, barely breathing. "Hey, stay with me," Daniel muttered, though she couldn't hear him. Adrenaline drowned out fear. He lifted the heavy wood enough to pull her free, ignoring the pain slicing through his shoulder. The fire roared louder, as if angry at losing its victim. Carrying her felt impossible, yet somehow he did. Step by burning step, Daniel forced his way back through collapsing corridors until cold night air finally hit his face. Firefighters rushed forward, pulling the woman from his arms as Daniel staggered onto the pavement. The last thing he saw before exhaustion claimed him was her hand weakly gripping his jacket, as if trying to remember him. Daniel woke hours later, sitting on a hospital chair, his arm bandaged and throat raw. A nurse said gently. A smoke inhalation could have been worse. Lucky. He almost laughed. His interview was in 6 hours. Still coughing, barely rested, and wearing borrowed clothes from the hospital, Daniel left before sunrise. Missing this opportunity wasn't an option. Rent was overdue. Hope itself felt overdue. He had no idea that the woman he carried through flames would walk back into his life before the day ended. Daniel thought saving her was the hardest part until the interview door opened and the woman whose life he saved became the person judging whether his dreams lived or died. The lobby of Hartwell Industries felt like another world. Glass walls, polished floors. People who looked certain about their futures. Daniel sat nervously, adjusting the only clean shirt he owned. His burned arm throbbed beneath the sleeve, reminding him of last night every time he moved. This job meant stability. Operations manager for a growing logistics company. It was his chance to start again after his previous company shut down unexpectedly. When the receptionist called his name, Daniel stood rehearsing answers in his head. Stay calm. Be confident. Don't mention the fire. He stepped into the conference room. And froze. Sitting at the far end of the table was the woman from the fire. Alive. Cleaned up, though faint redness still marked her skin. Her dark hair was tied neatly now, and professional composure replaced last night's helplessness. But her eyes widened instantly. You! She whispered. The other interview panel members looked confused as silence filled the room. Daniel's heart pounded. Of all the impossible things, the woman slowly stood. This is Daniel Carter? She asked the HR manager. Yes, someone replied. She let out a breath that trembled with disbelief. Olivia Hartwell, she said softly. CEO. The room shifted instantly. Daniel's mind struggled to catch up. The unconscious stranger he carried through flames owned the company interviewing him. Memories flashed across Olivia's face. Smoke fear, the moment she woke outside the burning building and learned an unknown man risked his life for hers before disappearing without giving his name. She saved me, she said quietly. Daniel shifted awkwardly. Anyone would have done the same. But Olivia shook her head. No, she replied. They didn't. The panel expected favoritism. Daniel could feel it, the silent assumption that gratitude would guarantee him the job. Instead, Olivia sat back down. Let's continue the interview properly. And she did. For 40 minutes, she questioned him harder than anyone else. Leadership failures, financial decisions, past mistakes, moments when he nearly gave up. Daniel answered honestly about losing work, rebuilding from nothing, learning resilience instead of blaming circumstances. When it ended, he felt strangely peaceful. Whatever happened, he had shown who he truly was. As he stood to leave, Olivia spoke again. Why did you go back into that fire? Daniel paused. Because he understood desperation. Because once, when his own world burned metaphorically, no one came running. He turned back and said simply, because someone needed help and I was there. No hero speech, just truth. 3 days later, Daniel received a call. He expected rejection. Instead, Olivia's voice came through the phone. You weren't hired because you saved me, she said. You were hired because you're the kind of person who shows up when things fall apart. That's the leader this company needs. Daniel sat silently, emotion tightening his chest. For the first time in years, life felt steady. Months passed and Daniel transformed the struggling operations division through empathy and teamwork rather than pressure. Employees trusted him because he understood struggle. One evening, as they overlooked the city skyline from the office terrace, Olivia spoke quietly. You know, she said, that fire destroyed half my company records. But it reminded me what actually matters. Daniel smiled faintly. People? She nodded. People who run toward problems instead of away from them. Sometimes the moment that feels like an interruption to your life is actually the beginning of it. Daniel didn't run into the fire to change his future. He ran in because it was right. And in doing so, he proved something powerful. Opportunities don't always come from perfect preparation. Sometimes they come from courage shown when no one is watching. The world rarely remembers resumes, but it never forgets character. And sometimes the person you save today becomes the door that opens tomorrow.